Hey everybody, new episode of the podcast. Like I said, we're committed to making this a weekly show, so you'll usually hear from us on Tuesday or Wednesday. Today on Thursday, but we were waiting for some details on things. And a weekly format means you have time to research stuff and double check things and go a little bit deeper than you can on a daily show. And speaking of production stuff, I'm here with my business partner and producer, Missy. You want to say hello?
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So we're sort of celebrating the return of the YouTube channel and our other platforms. And this podcast we have high hopes for. And again, I think there's like a niche, there's a need that hasn't yet been met for a weekly podcast that's not like Lex, whatever his name is, the guy with the shirt and tie. It's not as in-depth and long as he is, and really, frankly, is boring. It's a little bit more impactful where you can just listen to it and then move on. And the quantum computing story is one that won't go away. It reminds me in many ways of where Bitcoin was when I first started covering it as a journalist. At the time, I think the total market cap of Bitcoin was a couple or maybe $3 billion at most, the market capitalization of all the coins that were out there at the time. And with quantum computing, it's roughly similar numbers. Some of the leading quantum computing companies have market caps and valuations that aren't far off from where Bitcoin was at, again, way back when. And with that, I see a lot of opportunity. And I feel like the traditional computing paradigm is about to change in a big way. And you can just think through it logically that only a couple of years ago we got AI with ChatGPT and OpenAI, and then Meta and Claude and a couple of other models that have become publicly available. And you use ChatGPT, right?
All the time.
Yeah.
I love it.
And you use AI for some graphic stuff we do, right?
Yep.
On the videos.
Yep.
And so this is only a technology that's a couple of years old, and yet only a couple of years in, we're seeing that it's running up against a wall of computational limit. And to make smarter versions of ChatGPT and the other systems like Facebook or Meta's publicly available AI, for it to get smarter, they have to add more of these H100s and H200s and other chips that are mostly made by NVIDIA. And so it's basically a glorified graphics card that has evolved over the last couple of years into like an AI logic chip. But 100% its parents are just graphics cards. And it's weird to a lot of people. This isn't an original thought of mine. It's weird that the many years of people playing video games on their computers are what led to the development of high-end graphics cards, which turned out to be, to everybody's surprise, nobody was planning on this, turned out to be the heart of AI. These things run on, again, next-generation graphics cards that are made mostly by NVIDIA. And if quantum computing comes along, you no longer have to layer the whole world in NVIDIA GPUs in order to get a truly smart AI. So a number of people think we're moving toward what is called strong AI, where you can just ask it, hey, solve cancer for me. And it goes, hey, hang on a second, let me just go through all the data I have. And then it finds specific molecules or chemicals that are toxic to cancer cells, but not to healthy cells. Or, hey, I want a solar panel that's 300% more efficient. How would we design that? Hang on a second. Let me look into that for you. And it goes through all known human knowledge, and then it goes through its synthetic knowledge that it's come up with itself. And then it runs 100,000 simulations, which you can't do in an R&D lab in a second, right? It runs through 100,000 sims and figures out what the answer is. And we don't yet have that. And the reason why we don't have that is that they don't have enough graphics cards connected together. And you're hearing all these ridiculous, I think anyways, ridiculous solutions like Bill Gates and Sam Altman, who's behind OpenAI. Sam Altman and Bill Gates and many others are starting to invest in nuclear power plants and stuff, like 40-year-old, 50-year-old technology. They're investing in the nuclear power plants that people like Homer Simpson worked at in The Simpsons, the fictional cartoon. But point is, it's like kind of the past in many ways. And I don't mean that nuclear energy is the past. I mean that what these people are thinking of doesn't work. They're like, if we just have unlimited energy and an unlimited number of graphics cards, then we're going to get that super smart, strong AI that can actually solve societal problems and manage traffic congestion in major cities and spot terrorists before they become a problem to us, and also figure out where the market's going to be in 6 months and what the weather is going to look like and how to cure cancer and how people are going to live to 300. How does it solve all these problems? Well, all you got to do is give it unlimited energy. You just invest in a bunch of nuclear power plants, or you spend $100 billion a year on graphics cards, and you'll be there. And of course, any reasonable, logical person, even if you don't have a background in technology, says that's ridiculous. You can't strap something to unlimited energy because you run up against a wall. And so the escape hatch is quantum computing. Google came out with an experimental chip called Willow, and they showed it off earlier this year. And it only ran for about 5 minutes before it stopped functioning. But in those 5 minutes, it did more computation on a mathematical distribution problem that it was given. It did more unique computation than the world's leading supercomputers would have been able to do, according to Google, if they had been turned on at the start of time, the Big Bang explosion or whatever created the universe. If they had been turned on at the start of time and had been allowed to run at full speed between then and now. So you think about that, it's really mind-blowing, right? So one little chip was able to do more math than the leading supercomputers if they have been turned on since the start of space and time. And if you think, whoa, that's crazy, then you're at least understanding the scope of this. And they're seeing all these attacks across the internet where random attackers with very high levels of sophistication, either national governments, right, either entities like the NSA, or very well-funded outfits run by billionaire hackers. Someone is grabbing large amounts of internet data and they're just storing it for now. It's data that's useless because it's encrypted data. Like when you go on a website and it has HTTPS at the beginning of the website and it shows that little secure lock icon. You send that across the internet and it's encrypted traffic. Somebody or multiple people or organizations are going out of their way to grab all this stuff. And why grab it if it's useless? With traditional computers, it would take thousands of years to decrypt any of this stuff. It's total junk. So why go out of your way to grab it in the first place? Why not just focus on clear communications you can actually understand? Well, these governments or these hackers or pirates or whatever they are, they're betting that in the near future, the computational ability is going to get good enough that you can actually break through RSA and these other encryption standards. Just break right through and suddenly everybody's credit card transactions and everybody's private encrypted emails and their locations on their cell phones and everything else that was meant to be kept secret is suddenly clear text, suddenly readable to whoever has that data. And so they call those attacks intercept now, decrypt later attacks. And it shows you someone's betting that in the near future quantum computers are going to be good enough to do this craziness. And there have been people have been worried about, can Bitcoin survive quantum computers? It's a good question, right? Because I don't think quantum computers can see in the future per se. And Bitcoin is almost like a lottery. It's like no matter how good your computing is, you can't pick the lottery ball that's going to be drawn next week unless you're in some way being dishonest, right? You could rig the drawing, but if it's a fair drawing, which Bitcoin is, if it's a fair tumble, there's no way to see into the future. So I think at the moment Bitcoin is safe from quantum attacks, but what's not safe is literally everything else. And obviously, industry is taking this seriously because Microsoft said this is the year of quantum. This is the year to understand it and start to apply strategy. And NVIDIA is doing a quantum computing day where they've invited executives from some of the leading quantum companies to attend and present their, show their stuff off. And so people are taking this seriously, and it's going from science fiction to just reality. And again, the need is there. The need is we're building AI, but there's a limit to how smart it can get. And the whole point of the AI is so it'll be smart, right? We want the smartest thing possible if we want the real thing. And again, if you want magical solutions to cancer in 2 seconds and how to build better spacecraft that we would never be able to think of, and all this, advances in chemistry that no human mind could come up with ever, If you want these things, you need to strap the AI into essentially unlimited compute. And we don't have that. We don't have unlimited money to buy graphics cards, and we don't have hundreds of thousands of nuclear power plants that can fuel them. And so the only way to get there is with quantum computing. And the other weird thing about it is they think that it might work. Quantum computing itself might work because we have parallel universes. So it's pretty weird. With traditional computers, you have the ones and zeros, right? The bits. And it has two states. It's either on or off, 1 or 0. With quantum stuff, it's qubits, and it can be superimposed across a spectrum of states. And according to Google, part of why that might be possible is that we're living in a multiverse. It's absolutely crazy to think about. And that part, I would take that with a grain of salt. That part isn't the part that matters. What matters is either we can fill the planet with data centers with NVIDIA graphics cards running and unlimited energy needs. It's going to be a very ugly world. And it's still not going to get us there. Right? We don't want an AI system that's 10 times better. We need one that's 10,000 times better. And so to get there, it's quantum computers. And the energy needs of quantum computers are not that serious. It's just a matter of keeping them cool. So they have to run at close to absolute zero. So some of these quantum computers are running at a temperature that's hundreds of times colder than it would be in deep space. And so it's obviously not easy, but they're making advances. What do you think so far of all this?
I think it's wild.
I think it's wild.
But I'm ready for it. I'm not scared.
And I think the advances are going to seem really superhuman because this is just what technology does. It's like back in the day with crypto, someone at a cafe would be like, hey, I want to send you some Bitcoin. And you pull out your phone and they would download some weird app. And maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, you would actually have everything set up and they could send you the Bitcoin. Now it's very easy to use, right? If you want Bitcoin, you just go on PayPal or you go on Coinbase or whatever and you buy some. And it's, a brain dead person can do it. You just give them a credit card or something and it's doable. I think we're on the same exact track with quantum computing, where right now these things look very bizarre. I call it a golden jellyfish, right? It's like this metallic thing that kind of hangs down like jellyfish tentacles. And the reason why they're designed that way is each chamber, right? The chambers are separated by this gold-plated metal divider. Each chamber is colder than the one above it. And at the lowest chamber, where the quantum processing unit is housed, the QPU, which is the chip itself, that's the part that's being held at near absolute zero. And so the things that lead down to it, those weird little tendrils, are actually pushing microwaves toward the chip. And it's absolute craziness when you read it. And then you read about qubits, and again, the possibility that it functions because we live in a multiverse. This is the end of the road. This is like Merlin's final trick. I think we are moving toward real AI. And again, the only problem is how do you give it enough energy and brains to actually solve the world's great problems? Because I don't think the world's great problems are just impersonating celebrities' voices and coming up with cheesy sex bots and stuff. I think the actual, we all know what the real thing looks like. We all know it, HAL 9000, hopefully not HAL because we don't have the term malicious, right? But we all know it's something super smart that can steer a spacecraft for years or something like that, or run a surgery successfully with just robotic arms and stuff. We all know what that looks like, and it's not current ChatGPT. It's not a chatbot. It has to be 10,000 times smarter. And so we're gonna continue to follow this industry as it evolves, but people have also asked me, so which companies are you personally in? And that's never going to be our focus. I'm not like Jim Cramer. I'm not here to pick stocks for people. There are only at the moment 4 or 5 serious publicly traded quantum computing companies in the US. And so you can either research these 4 or 5 companies yourself and see which, if any, appeal to you, or you can put it through an AI screener. You can ask your AI like ChatGPT or Claude. You can ask it, hey, I'm interested in quantum computing stocks. Can you give me a rundown of the strengths and weaknesses of each one? You can do your own analysis. So again, I'm invested in a couple of them. and I would like to think that I have taste. Years ago when I was into crypto, I didn't buy every single crypto on the market. I didn't just layer the roulette board, because in my opinion, you don't do as well if you're invested in everything. And Warren Buffett once said pretty much the same thing. He said, after a while, you figure out if you're good at the game or you're not. And if you're not good at the game, you should just have an index fund or something that holds everything or has exposure to everything. And if you are good at the game, you know that you're good at it. And in this case, I feel like my tastes from cryptocurrency of only picking winners with a few failures, that was much better than if I had picked everything. Because there have been a lot of failures in crypto. And people talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum, but they don't talk about the hundreds of coins that just went nowhere. And so here again, the benefit is there are only 4 or 5 serious contenders at the moment. And do your own research and look into them and know that this is still a very risky space. With few exceptions, these are all unprofitable companies that are burning through a lot of money. And there's a lot of hope being pinned on each one of them. But this is the risky time period. And I don't want to give specific numbers because I can't. But just to give you the scope of excitement, I feel like $1 million today in the right quantum technology. Again, there are 4 or 5 that are competing, and we'll see which ones actually become the standard, if any of these. But $1 million today in one of them that actually succeeds and actually helps lead to quantum supremacy, as it's called, where quantum computers are just so much better than everything else on the market. That million in 6 months or 12 months could be 30 million in terms of this is the scope of growth ahead. So if you extrapolate that, 500,000 could be 15 million in a year. 250,000 could be 7.5 million. And again, I'm not pointing at any specific company, and I'm not predicting this number at all. I'm just saying, just in the same way that when Kathy Wood goes on CNBC and says, oh, Bitcoin could be at millions of dollars by 2030 or whatever. That's how I feel about this, is the numbers are so big that it's hard not to be interested. Because in a year or two, when everybody's talking about this, the standards are going to be laid down to a large extent. There are going to be, a FedEx and UPS of quantum computing, or a Bitcoin and Ethereum of quantum computing. And then there will be the stragglers. But to get this right, it's not much different from being a pharmaceutical company. So they're pouring a lot of money into research and development, and they're buying great minds from the different universities, bringing people on board. And that's highly capital intensive. They're burning through money, and they're pulling in revenue at this point. These companies all have revenue on their books. They have paying customers who will log in some cases, and just access compute time on their quantum system. So they're already pulling in some money, but it's tiny compared to how much they're spending. And that's okay with me, because this is like the new space race. And I expect most of these companies to burn out at some point or be bought out in very humble terms, right? Bought out not on their own terms, but to survive. So I think most are going to fail or be bought out. But I think 1 or 2 might become like the Intel of quantum chips, or the Intel of quantum systems, which to me is super exciting, because what problems does this solve? Literally everything. It would tell us how to make batteries more efficient so that our cars could run for 800 miles instead of 400 miles. And it would show us how to make spacecraft that are so much more efficient than today's, that we can do 10 times what NASA's doing right now. And in fact, NASA is a partner to some of these companies already, as is Lockheed Martin and many of the kind of deep state baddies. So this is something that's opening up very quickly, because we're not the only ones who see the opportunity. On quote unquote on the battlefield, if you're Lockheed Martin or somebody like that, quantum computer could take a snapshot of what the enemy's assets are and run through billions of simulations and then tell you how to plan your war accordingly. I mean, it's like we're building the genie, And again, the magic here is that technology just gets better. Same with Bitcoin back in the day. This is pure technology. It's all it is. The product is just little pieces of metal that come together, and it looks like, again, some weird contraption like jellyfish tentacles. But so it's all intellectual property. It's all IP. It's all research. But whoever gets there, I think, will be the new Intel. That's not even an accurate statement. They'll be the new Google and Amazon and Tesla combined in terms of the amount of power that they have when you can just rub that genie lamp and be told anything. So I'll leave this one here. And again, it's a risky thing. It's brand new. I wouldn't sell the farm and put all your money into it. But I would start reading about it. I would start researching it and taking it very seriously.
I just wanted to add before we end this one, make sure to check out our YouTube channel that is now back. So make sure to subscribe and like.